fifth session on Stay with God. Last weekend we had an introduction to his life and spent some time on book 1, the biography, and the love song of John Carey, which is book 2. And we had started this book. Okay, I'm going to have to get that up because it's important to understand how it fits in with the complete book.
No, I'm just trying to get around Stephanie's head.
Yeah, so here's the table of contents. We've looked at this before, but so book 1 is a poetic, epic biography of Meher Baba as the avatar of the age. It's really presenting in that way. And book 2 is a love song, and thus is presenting who Baba is within the lover-beloved dynamic. That is, the avatar Meher Baba as the beloved of his lovers, the most personal aspect of who Baba is. And book 3, God Speaking, the question which reality asked itself in the beginning of illusion and its end, is showing the opposite. That is, the universal aspect of Meher Baba, or impersonal, or the avatar as that God who creates the entire universe and who, as every drop soul, makes the journey through the universe to find himself again. So you see the concept that's going on here. Here's the life story, here we have the personal beloved, and here we have universal God. So these 3 books, as I understand it, are presenting who Avatar Meher Baba is. Now the actual job, the actual task, the order, which Francis got from Baba in the form of the title is Stay with God, you know. But before you can stay with him, you need to know who he is to begin with. Well, who is this man? So that's what these first 3 books are doing. Okay, this is just to reorient to the book and to the place in the book where we are. And last time I had attempted to play something of Mozart, as you may recall, illustrating the poetic genre or poetic form. And I'm going to write that word up here, genre. And you know what a genre is? Say a literary genre, or really a type category. Yeah. So, for example, novel is a genre. Or I don't know, what kind of genre would you be working in? TV scripts? Is that a genre you work in?
Kids comedy.
Kids comedy, okay. Magazine. Soap operas. Sonnets. Epics, you know, those would all be genres. Well, this book 3 is organized around the divine theme. And the divine theme, which is up there represented, this is the star, yeah. You see in that chart there? That is actually a chart representation of the divine theme, which is the journey of the soul. From God's original whim, who am I, through the evolution of consciousness, which is all of this. This is the evolution of consciousness. At the bottom, you bottom out in human form and go through the reincarnationary cycle of 8,400,000 lives. And then this is the involutionary journey through the subtle world and the mental world until the divine theme culminates with the soul's question, who am I, being answered by I am God. That's the divine theme. And as best I know, Avatar Meher Baba is the first man ever to have presented this idea to humanity. As best I can see in the religious traditions and philosophical traditions prior to him, there were hints of it, and pieces of it, and intimations of it, but it was never fully presented. But it was by Baba, and his magnum opus, his great exposition, Meher Baba's great exposition on the subject of the divine theme. is God Speaks, which was published in 1955. In November 1955, it literally was published while the Mehrabad Sahavas there was happening. And it was at that Sahavas that Baba gave to Francis Brabazon the order to write Stay with God. So you see there's a historical link between Stay with God and God Speaks. And this is the book of Stay with God most directly related to God Speaks, where he retells the story of the divine theme, the biography of the soul, you could call it. And he does it 5 times, 4 plus 1. Each section, let's see what happens if I do this. I'm in the wrong slideshow, sorry. So I'll have to pull it up later, but now it's too shrunk. But once I start this, I'll be able to attend to this again. But this book 3 Francis gave very detailed attention to proportions and numbers, the exact number of stanzas in each part, in each section of every part. So the way that this is organized is that it has 4 sections of 10 stanzas each. Right? Remember, there's the 10 states of God, all that. Well, there are 4, so it goes through the story of the divine theme 4 times plus 1. There's a 1 stanza coda. So there are 41 stanzas total. So genre here, in my opinion, I don't think Francis ever said this, but it seems to me to be exceedingly obvious, is a musical form called theme and variations. There are a lot of compositions, great classical compositions, which illustrate this. And last week, I tried to play a little bit of a Mozart piece, but it was so soft. I'd like to play another 2 or 3 minutes of Mozart's rendering of the melody that most of us know from the song Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. As Dinah was saying, Mozart didn't write that melody, but he composed this theme and variations on it. So I'll play little snippets so you can get an idea of what this form is that Francis is using in Book 3. Okay, that's enough of that. At Miranda, we played the whole thing. But you get the idea, right? Taking a simple theme, and of course, we're listening to an utter musical genius in the way that he develops it. So now, in Stay with God, again, this is the, oops, let me see. I've got to get this so this works. Alright, let me try this again, because this is sort of messed up. Okay, sorry, I have to reopen it because it's not giving me what I need. Let's see if this does it. Okay, there we go. So last time we went through the first, I'm calling it passes. There are 4 passes plus 1. 4 10-stanza passes through the divine theme. We went through the first one last time, which some of you will recall. And it's kind of a straight path. He presents the divine theme in a fairly straightforward way, although it's very, very beautiful and moving in some of its sections. You may remember the part about under a human form under the moon, and the moon rising up huge and yellow, and grains of sand in the rush waves like little universes. You remember that? Some of you were here last week. And then when the dawn comes, suddenly you've got Kali licking votaries into blast furnaces and goose-stepping, all that kind of imagery, showing the moon and the sun aspects, which is a big theme in Stay with God. And then through in the journey through the planes of consciousness, representing it in heroic terms of the Iliad and the heroes there, and Kurukshetra, the Battle of Kurukshetra, is where the Bhagavad Gita is situated, the great war in the Mahabharata. And Francis is clearly interpreting those things as an epic depiction of the struggle of the plains, the passage through the plains. The heroic themes we saw in Book 1 is really highly developed in Stay with God. Okay, so now we're going to look through little bits at some of the later passes. That was the first pass. There are going to be 3 more plus coda. And when I say passes and when I say 4 sections, here's what I'm talking about. There's actually a formal division within the text. And here's, as you can see, a 10-line stanza, right? Count on me, you'll see 10. And there are 10 of these 10-line stanzas. I'm struck by the fact that God Speaks, which this is based on, culminates in a chapter called The 10 States of God. The next section of Stay with God will have 5-line stanzas, and each one of them ends on the word the perfect master. And as most of you will know, there are in fact 5 perfect masters. So there are a lot of patterns like this in Stay with God. Okay, now, so he begins over in the second pass with the creation. And by the way, as we proceed, go ahead and ask questions or bring things up as they occur to you. Don't be bashful or hold back or anything like that. Now, each of these 4 passes begins with this phrase, once God slept. And another recurring theme is when you get to the end of the reincarnationary part, that's in this right here, just as you're about to enter into the spiritual path, Francis uses the thought and phraseology expressing, and he takes his stand in the waters. And to enter into the path, you have to take your stand. And the waters are a very developed idea in the first path. We have ocean imagery. And, you know, as we brought up last time, those of you who have gone swimming in the surf have ever done that. I love it myself. Although as I'm getting older, I'm starting to be aware that the surf has become more dangerous than it used to be. But, you know, when you're trying to stand there and a wave hits you, you know that experience? Or, you know, a wave is coming, holy smokes, look at that thing, you know, like that. Well, the ocean is tremendously powerful. But to enter into the ocean here is representative, in this case, in Francis' use, as the ocean of samsara, the ocean of reincarnation, all the the false ocean, all the forces of the mind and of desire and of the universe that are just, when you're in reincarnation, they're just washing you this way and that way. You think you're in control of your life, but you are not. But to enter the path, you have to take your stand in the waters and conquer them. So that theme comes up every single time. It actually came up in the first pass. We looked at it last week. Okay, so here we begin over again. Once God slept, there surged within him the urge, the whim to know himself. And he asked himself, who am I? Okay, now this is very brief. First pass, he spent a stanza and a half on this. He's being much quicker. And now this is going to be his theme this time. The second time, you see theme and variations. Each time through, he takes certain metaphors, certain ideas, which he develops more. And this is going to be his idea this time. He was objectified to himself as opposite to him, experiencing contrariety. Have any of you ever seen that word?
Yes.
You know where it comes up? Writing That Speaks. In the first presentation of the whim, undoubtedly, Francis was taking it right from there. And when the whim first surged, the first experience that the soul had was of contrariety. What might that be? What do you think?
Was opposite or different?
Yes.
Variety, like variety?
And what would you be contrary to? Okay, I'm a stone. Yeah. In who I really am is infinite. All power, all knowledge, all bliss, unlimitedness. And suddenly I am identifying with the most finite, most gross, most limited of all forms. That is the absolute opposite of who I really am. That is the experience of contrariety. And actually, that is what drives us to this very moment. Because our constant restlessness, our constant dissatisfaction. I mean, if you weren't dissatisfied with something or another, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't get up in the morning. You wouldn't go on breathing. It's because we want. I want. I'm not satisfied with who I am and I want more. It's because of the root of contrariety that appeared with the first experience. So Francis is bringing that up. And he's going to give us a metaphor for it. And I'll just tell you right now what it is. It's houses. And a house is made, you may recall Francis ever making a house. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
What did he make it out of? Stone. The first form. I am sure when he was working on that house, he was vividly conscious of the significance of stone in all of this. Stone is the very best figure for contrariety in the sense. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, the first house that he built for Baba, Maya House in Beacon Hill, Sydney, was made of stone. The second house he built for Baba in Avatar's abode was all tongue and groove wood.
Yeah. So I guess he moved on from stone to vegetation. Jumping over metal. Although there's what is that roof is, whatever that is. Yeah. Yeah, so in making Mere House, there's that film, that video, which some of you I'm sure have seen. It's right on YouTube where you can see him actually doing the work.
The Stone Mason by Michael LePage.
Yeah, that's the one.
Excellent, yep.
Really worth seeing. And the contrariety, and so disrupting his indivisible poise and eternal tranquility, and causing in him experience of impression which was gross, solid, himself as separate from him, finite as opposite to infinite. Okay, he became conscious by impression. And, we haven't looked at it because of the, you need a longer 9 days like at Meron to really look at some of these things. But there's a message Baba gave, and here it is, for stay with God. And it's on the primal Om sound. And in it, Baba, in fact, I see it right here. This separation is not a separation by division, but a separation through impression. See that? So Francis was just echoing that in what we just read here. Separation by impression. You know, Francis was quick study. I mean, the book God Speaks only came out when he got the order to write Stay with God. And he didn't have study groups and cliff notes and aids. I would be very surprised in Australia how many there were who read it in that short period of time, or who would have been of any help to someone like Francis, an intellectual giant, clearly. So, separate, became conscious by impression, not of himself as eternal, infinite self. So now he's going to go on to the evolution of consciousness. And the figure he's going to use this time, the dominant metaphor in the second pass, theme and variations, right? So he'll have different dominant metaphors sometimes in each of his passes. And this time it's building houses. And he uses that as a figure for the soul adopting forms. Why do you think that would be a suitable metaphor for that? A house.
Pretty graphic.
Yeah. What do you do in a house?
Live in it.
You live in it. And that's what we do with our forms. I am not the form. I live in the form. Soul is not the, I am not my house. I live in my house. The soul is not the form. It lives in the form. So he's giving this as his dominant metaphor. This is one of the things when you study poetry, to be conscious of things like metaphors, right, and stuff like that. So he built for himself a house of stone, not of stone walls, but solid stone. You get the figure? He sat down in the stone itself. It's kind of a powerful figure. I can almost imagine a sort of a yogi somehow magically sitting down in the middle of a block of stone and sat down in it. And because of the closeness of stone thought, though without active thinking, he was stone. And because of the closeness of stone thought, he was stone. So this is the first form. He, the eternally free and only existent one, thought he was stone. But after ages and cycles of this imprisonment, the heat of his desire for self-knowing melted the stone. You can imagine the intensity of the desire melts the stone. And he was freed from imprisonment in the stone, but retained the impressions of stoneness. And with those impressions of most solidness, built for himself a more commodious house in which to experience solidness with greater freedom. He's moving up. Right. I don't think he's in Malibu yet, but he's probably moved, I don't know, can I say it, out of East LA to Palms, okay. Yeah. This house was iron, and because of its closeness, identified himself with iron and sat in iron sitting. I get a vivid image of this kind of shadow yogi just sitting in a piece of iron, in a block of iron, for ages and ages thinking, I am iron, and unable to dissociate. Though not so long, since iron melts quicker than stone, and this house too dissolved away. And now he goes through the whole series of evolution, and until we get to, and each time the fire. So now we're having houses and fire as the symbol of what breaks the experience of contrariety, breaks identification, and moves you on. He's going to use fire very powerfully later on in this thing. Burn one house. Okay. Oh no, that's right. Man flesh. And man flesh was thin flesh and consumed easily in fire, but desirable above all other forms of flesh. Okay, and so each time the fire, and now we have the whole reincarnationary sequence in man form. Now, a lot of what we've been seeing through here, most people here have probably read God Speaks at least once, right? Imagine. A part of God Speaks that is very famous because of its eccentric prose is chapter 2, where he starts talking about, and then took the most next form, all that business, the next most, and all that stuff, and God Speaks, and the tortuous account Baba gives of evolution from the most first stone form to the most next stone form, which is actually just the consolidated mold of the impressions from the most first form, etc., etc., etc. It goes on and on like that. And when I read that, I actually vividly imagine Baba as the avatar trying to describe to us what he sees. This is God in stone form, going through this agonizing, tortuous process. Okay, this is the part of Stay with God where Francis is covering this. So he's trying to present it, he's using a bunch of metaphors to give life to it, right? This whole form. But now we're down to human form and reincarnation. And this is a different description of reincarnation. Some of you were here last time, but he gave a very poetic description in the first pass. But now, he uses this, I think, almost every pass for reincarnation. Loving his loves and suffering his loves, right? Human love, isn't it like that? You fall in love and you love the person, and then there's no suffering that comes out of it. It's always the other person's fault, of course. Or else, it could be another person, or it could be something that you love, or it could be your desires, You get sick and you suffer love for your own body. I mean, this is the human experience. Loving your loves and suffering his loves. Breaking down death, building up again birth. Innumerable houses for his requirement of innumerable experience. And between each casting off, accompanied by groans and sweats, and hope from priest, and fears from prospect, right? The priest, maybe, will I go to hell? Will I go to heaven? And, the agony is, we all do this. This is part of our experience. Clinging back and sundering on, and new assuming through mother pains and blood. What is this about? Birth. Yeah. We actually go through all this experience of being an infant coming out of our mother's womb, and and hopes and anguish neglected or comforted, heaven or hell according to deeds, desires, and accomplishments. And now, this is going to be one of his accounts of the God Speaks chapter on reincarnation, chapter 4, part 4. Never arising at the hidden equipoise. Remember that? What is equipoise? Yeah. Of what? Opposites of sanskaras, of every kind, And as God Speaks describes it, when you're in the heaven or hell state, you experience the predominant opposite. So if I've been, say, a really bad person, I experience the hell state and burn off the excess. So it's like you have pans, and one is much heavier than the other. One figure that Baba gave for this was, there's a weight in one pan, and in the other pan there's a block of ice, right? And gradually the block of ice melts, and it melts, and it melts, and the water falls off, until the weight is equal, and then they come into balance, equipoise. What's the problem there? Problem solved, right?
It keeps on melting.
Yeah, and the momentum of it compels you to say, I'm going to get born again. And you jump into another body, so you never really achieve that equipoise. God Speaks has a whole section on that. The momentum carries you into a new body, and the momentum goes to the opposite. So whatever you identified with this time, you're the opposite next time. On and on it goes. Never arriving at that hidden equipoise, which, if got, would finish the infernal seesaw of up good down bad. Back where you came from. Okay, this is where we need someone like Dinah to give us the Aussie pronunciation.
Oh, go back to where you came from.
That's it. To another body, because that's the way you want it, although you really don't. And so forth. But now, the pendulum, the scales of relative value, trying to assess the inertia of the pendulum and hold it midway at 6 o'clock exact, right? To get that perfect balance. Now, do you remember this, those of you who were here last week? But as the earth nights of moon and stars of eyes, and cool breeze over the still warm sands, curling a wisp of hair across her brow, which nourished his vision. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. In fact, I'm going to pull it up because it's he uses this. This is from the first pass. It's really gorgeous poetry where he's describing the romance of reincarnation. As man, he loved his loves and suffered his loves. Right? We just saw that in the second pass. Here it was in the first. Sunbeat and rain hail, dew of love, whirlpool and dark wave and threatening rocks. Okay, he's warned us there's danger here, but it's kind of romantic, exciting, or adventurous, the way it's described here. It's not going to be in the next stanza. Warm swirl, surf's back rush around the ankles, right? You guys have been in the ocean and felt that. Warm surf pulling back. We're sort of in night imagery here. And fine sand suspended like worlds in the water. So our experience of reincarnation, each little thing we're in, becomes its own universe and its own world suspended. Salt on eyes and mouth. Taste of salt on her mouth. Suddenly there's a she there, right? And you would taste the salt on her mouth because you're kissing her, right? So romance, ocean, like one of these, I never saw it, but somebody brought up From Here to Eternity. Have any of you ever seen that?
Yes.
Big, romantic, passionate kisses on the beach. Is that the idea?
In the wave, like waves crashing.
Yeah, waves crashing, yeah. Francis might have seen it, so he's drawing from imagery. Taste of salt on her mouth, and the moon come up huge and yellow. Warm honey of kisses, warm honey with slight salt. I think that's brilliant, brilliant description. And the pounding of earth shaker. Poseidon. Poseidon is the Greek god of the ocean, right? Dream sleep in the breeze and the dawn, stirring a wisp of her lovely hair. This is the romance imagery that he's created this first time that he uses throughout the whole thing. We won't read the whole next stanza, but I just want to remind you that a wisp of her lovely hair and warm honey kisses becomes, with open mouths and protruding tongues of Kali, licking victims and votaries into blast furnaces. I don't know if you remember that. And here's what the beloved has suddenly become like. See here? All these skulls and this horrific imagery. So this is reincarnation. The romance betrays you and turns into this, the horror side of it comes up. Reincarnation, back and forth, back and forth. So he keeps evoking this imagery that he established the first time throughout this entire book 2. So let's see. So he gave us another moment of that right here. Yeah, but now this is the romance of reincarnation. As all of this, the moon huge and yellow and a wisp of hair and the honey of kisses and all that was apprenticeship to forgetfulness and service by which he would become, in what ages to come, a lover of God. That's what all of that was for. So all this fumbling with scales betwixt breaking up and again building of innumerable houses was schooling for the day when would be revealed to him the eternal values of truth. Now, here we're going to get entrance into the spiritual path. We're right now coming to this point in the divine. Your cycle of reincarnation is complete. You're just going to enter into the path there. Going and coming. demolishing with fire one house and building another with bricks of impressions, right? Contrariety is the bricks of impressions with which you build a house. Baked in the fire. The fire has baked these impressions, and the fire dissolves them. Now here's where we get the key moment, this key figure. Till he takes his stand in the flood. Each pass, that's the critical moment. You have to take your stand. This is the heroic element. To enter the path is an accomplishment of tremendous heroism, which he really developed on the first pass. And now look at this. And turns the waters to control the fire, or grasps fire in two hands wet with weeping. Isn't that beautiful? Can you imagine, I don't know, one of these contemporary movies, there's fire and somebody somehow grabs it and takes mastery of the fire. Why wet from weeping?
Suffering.
Yeah, where was the suffering? All that he's gone through, that has turned into longing for love. You can't do this without, to grab the fire, your hands have to be wet from your own weeping. That's what's entailed in doing this.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if in Christianity seeing heaven and hell as physical places, and seeing hell with all this fire, do you think, I mean, how they arrived at that image, did somebody kind of remember what it was like, and that's where that image came from? Because it's interesting that they see this, they say there's this physical place with all of this fire.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. I know Pasni Maharaj, talking about all the Hindu depictions of the heaven and hell states, said, yeah, there are things like that. So, I don't know, has anybody been to hell recently? I bet you it could be kind
I don't remember.
Yeah. I try to get rid of the memory, yeah.
A lot of the imagery that we have was kind of codified, in a sense, in Dante's Inferno. Although he was playing upon and creatively playing with imagery that was current, I'm sure. But I've heard it said, by psychics, or I've read people who give accounts, basically saying that to some degree, what you experience is based on what you expect.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, if you ever want to read, I should think, an unsurpassable description of his vision of hell, read Dante's Inferno. I mean, he was one of the greatest poetic geniuses ever lived.
And the movie that is just out now is fabulous. Dante's Inferno.
I see.
It's good. To me, the fire of hell, I'm kind of Zoroastrian, and Zoroastrian, fire is the symbol of love, and to me, always fire of hell is to purify you, actually. Right? You don't pass through it so you can go to the next life, pure.
Yeah.
That's my thinking.
Well, in this case, notice that he's mastering the fire, and he's conquered the water first. So he's using the elements there. That is, he's conquered the ocean of his own desires and his own delusion. And with those hands that have conquered that, he takes control of the fire. So now, instead of having houses, bricks baked by fire, which you build a new house, and then the fire burns down your house. The fire keeps driving it all, but you're not in control of it. But now he takes control of the fire himself. It's like that. You see the heroic imagery. You see what he used. Anyway, most of you haven't read the Iliad or those things, but or the Mahabharata, I don't know if any of you have read some of the Mahabharata, but you see this tremendous heroism here. Well, Francis was really attuned to that, and he's really making it clear. Those who go through the path are the true heroes, and those stories we read in the Iliad and Mahabharata are about that. That's their meaning, actually. It takes unimaginable heroism to do this. He's trying to give an idea of it, the way he's talking about it. So I love this. Grasps fire in two hands wet with weeping. I think it's a beautiful line. And worshipping its glowing countenance, moves it. See, now he's doing it himself instead of having it done to him. Moves it to burn the rubbish in the house. Okay, I don't know, what do you call those people? Hoarders. Right? We're all spiritual hoarders. We may not know it. We may have a nice house to keep ourselves from realizing it. But now he's taking the fire and burning the rubbish, but that's not solving the problem. The house itself has to go. Or seek the master. Bright. Now we have an appearance of the master for the first time in this book. Bright beyond fire's brightness. Moist eyes with floods of beneficence and mercy. I don't know if any of you remember last weekend, there was in book 1 where Shiva takes the weight of the waters on his head, right? Because the Ganga would destroy the earth, and Shiva took it in his dreadlocks. Well, Francis, in a later part of book 1, develops on that metaphor and uses the figure of water flowing down the cheeks of the avatar as tears of compassion that he developed. Francis is establishing a lot of figures, and then through the course of the poem he develops them. So there's the use of it. So now it makes me think moist-eyed. The master is moist-eyed because of his love and compassion and suffering for suffering humanity. With a beneficence and mercy, and offers him the sin of vice and virtue of householding. Both of those are sin in that sense. Offers him his bricks of himself to be pounded back into clay for remodeling. Okay, now the destruction of the impressions themselves can be carried out. Yeah.
So he's pointing out householding as vice, so the idea is, maybe that's why a guy takes to the cloth, the yogi disappears, he doesn't want to be a householder.
That's right, yeah. So that phase of it, yeah.
But vice and virtue.
Yeah.
In that one.
And he's saying the sin of vice and virtue. He's deliberately playing with that. That is to say, sin, in quotation marks, means the ignorance, the falsehood of identifying with either vice, with being caught in that dichotomy. That dichotomy creates the experience of contrariety, and you have to renounce that. The whole good and evil itself. Okay, takes his stand. I'm going to jump to the very last stanza, and look here what he does with this house thing. Oh God, there's so much here that's so neat. And he's going to develop this. Takes his stand and stops playing the role. Stops walking around the house admiring it. Picking up knickknacks from the shelves. Dusting and stroking and acknowledging them as work. And placing them back in the just right places. Looking out from the sitting room windows at the view and garden. I'm not actually the tidiest housekeeper who was ever born. But I do this in my own ways. Don't we all? If it's not in this sphere, it's in that one. Thinking, a shrub there, some so-and-so flowers there. I, the householder. Turning back into the room, considering his face. A few gray hairs, figure, a bit too much in the mirrors. Okay, all of that. Stops and turns on himself coldly or savagely, and deliberately opens the door and leaves it to whomso to loot and enjoy. You just leave it. You just leave it. Renunciation. And he's talking about the true renunciation here. We have example. I think he gives the example of Tukaram as the external renunciation is just the outer form of the inner renunciation. Now look at what he does with the house image metaphor here. It was the symbol of the gross contrariety of stone. Now look at how it transforms. But whatever, comes at last the ripening through loves, unloves, swift joys and slow pain, sure grasp and shaking hand. You see the opposites are here. Ripened to indifference and alertness. He takes his stand in the current, again, water imagery here, of comings and goings. And next time he comes with transparent residual impressions. Isn't that beautiful? I sort of think one of these movies where now it's being made of some kind of crystal or magical substance. It's transparent for building material. It's not bricks anymore, right? If ever you read Dante, in his Paradiso, one of his brilliant poetic accomplishments is that physical imagery almost disappears there. And he somehow is able to create this whole architecture of paradise. He'll use metaphors once in a while, but all because you're in a sphere where the material is left long behind. And he creates all this imagery out of non-material things. It's really, I mean, he was a spectacular genius. Well, Francis is doing, he's giving where bricks have turned into this other kind of substance. Transparent residual impressions for building material. And builds him his next last house. This isn't the last incarnation, this is the one before. Through which, from outside, light shines. Sort of like a crystal palace or a crystal house, right? This is a saint, you know. And he loses himself in dreaming light, and goes in light, and weighs light. What is this weighs light business? I don't think we read it, but he talks about it in, or did we read it? In a reincarnation, after dying, you weigh what you've done. You weigh your experience, you know, and come back and live a new life having done that assessment. Well, at this stage, you know, in the high planes of consciousness, what would you be weighing? You would be weighing exalted things, you know. The highest sorts of, I don't know, you should ask Muhammad the must, what you do after death. But your non-material qualities of light, qualities of visionary things, goes in light and weighs light and returns with materials of light. This is the last incarnation. And builds a house of light and meditates light, becomes light, and never again returns. Isn't it gorgeous? So look at what he's done with that metaphor. From contrariety, bricks, sitting in stone and thinking of stone, till this. So Baba says, gives life to God speaks, right? He's really doing that. So that's the second pass.
Again, if I was an architect, I'd be overwhelmed with the ways of ethereal-like experiences by transparent and beautiful. Maybe that's why architects who build these tremendous edifices and get raised because like they have all glass buildings. It sort of makes sense now. It's a different vibe.
It is, yeah. So this is the second variation he's used on it. With using this one heavily. Now the third one is quite completely different. We're going to have, I'll show you how much he has to say about creation. Remember the whim and all that. The first pass he gave a whole stanza and more to the beyond state and to the whim. Now, once God slept, he always starts that way, and awoke, and journeyed in immense journeying through stone and metal, and green of earth, and worm, and fish, and bird, and animal, and assumed man shape. We're already in reincarnation. Just boom. He's skipping it this time, because he has another topic to really be developing. Okay. I'll just jump a bit. You know, there's so many things that are... A lot of these lines, when you really get to know them, they're deeply moving. He'll have these lines that really punch through, just really... Okay. A man, sunlight of eyes and pasture of sweet lips, dark night and cruel wave curling beneath. Remember the cruel wave? We read that. It's a dark wave, but when you find out what it is, it's a cruel wave. Destructive. The road, himself the road. Love, the grace of the Master. Okay, now we're going to get a little bit of heaven and hell again. Dropped the last roll state called heaven and hell. Pleasure and suffering intensified through lack of dampening flesh. Hell is hot or cold, or hot and cold, according to heat of desires and coldness of love. There he's explained the heat and cold thing. By the way, in Dante's ninth circle of hell, at the very bottom, it's ice, frozen. So you get a lot of hot stuff before that, but the very bottom is ice. According to heat of coldness of love, but world himself is fire, which ever heats the crucible of forms, and which has melted the impressions of flesh and bone and brain back to their origins of earth. Okay, he's going back, explaining again what this fire is. So he's going to spend a couple stanzas on reincarnation, and then never coming to terms with it, never for long undividedly enjoying residence on earth and false promises, never holding beyond the duration of a glass wine's taste, beyond the duration of the kiss, forgetfulness, right? Isn't this human experience? Isn't it like this? You know, whenever you have a really, I don't know, blissful experience, you can't hold it beyond the moment of the taste, and then it's gone. That's what our life is like. It doesn't stay. You know, in Buddha, he gave 3 characteristics of, I don't know, samsara or delusion or whatever his word for it. One of them is it's impermanent. It's unsatisfying, it's impermanent, and it's soulless. Those are the 3 marks that he gave the created universe.